Well, how are ya? Good. So I think Michelle has told some other community members that she thought she resigned her budget committee position in June of last year.
That's news to me. I didn't get any. Did the board members send an emails or anything that you're aware
No. Didn't she respond to the earlier?
of? I haven't had a
You
response.
emailed us like.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I can follow up after this meeting. But. to my knowledge, she's still on the committee. Irby is we don't have a budget committee chair until our next meeting. You get to run this meeting, so.
Okay,
Do you have an agenda in your budget? It's on page 4.
okay. So nobody else is coming, do we want to go ahead and start? Let's go ahead and call our meeting to order. The time now is 5:37. Yeah. So. Welcome and introductions.
I'll start. Jean McCloskey, Vice Chair.
Melissa Urban, Budget Committee. Alexa Gassmer, Budget Committee member. Cora Holliman, MACRD Board Member 4.
Steve Reed, Budget Committee member.
Brandy McNamee, Budget Committee.
Irby Dominguez, MACRD Chair. So. We'll move on to number 3, MACRD Budget Orientation.
Well, welcome budget committee members. It's that time of year where we get to talk about how things have gone this year and what we look forward to for next year. You have in front of you a copy of the fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget. It's also available online in the same sections that you see in your physical copy. You also have a presentation, copy of the presentation that I'm going to get tonight in front of you, and I'll add that to the website after tonight's meeting. The goal tonight is to have a work session around the budget. So there's some allowable content and some things that we can't talk about because this isn't an official budget committee meeting, it's a work session. So we'll talk about what's allowed and what's not. We'll talk through budget committee duties, which most of you are familiar with, phases of the budget process and budget principles. Then we'll get into the budget document itself, which looks different from the last 2 years because there's only one proposed budget, and I'm very excited that there's just one. And then we'll go through some highlights, challenges, and year-end estimates for this current fiscal year, 25-26, and then talk through next steps. As we go, if you have questions, clarifications, anything that would be helpful for you in evaluating the budget document, as we go, please let me know. The goal is tonight for you to get sort of a lay of the land, and then if questions come up, for me to be able to answer them as we go into our first official budget committee meeting on May 8th. So for tonight's work session, the statute allows that we train on the budget committee process. We talk about what's happening currently at the MAC and with operations, the board's vision, goals, and spending priorities for the current fiscal year, our budget projections and potential changes or unexpected things that could happen between now and June 30, and then current and past year budgets. But we cannot talk about specifics on the proposed budgets that will happen at the May 18th meeting, or specific funds or line items within that proposed 26-27. That'll happen at the next meeting where we do the budget message and then start going through the proposed budget. Any questions so far? Okay, so the duties of the budget committee are to hold one or more meetings to receive the budget message and the budget document, provide members of the public an opportunity to ask questions about and comment on the budget documents, and that'll happen at the May 18th meeting. And approve the budget document either as submitted by the budget officer or as revised. And then, as we all learned last year, because we have a full budget committee of 10, we need at least 6 yes votes for it to be approved. The district has been very open and transparent that didn't happen last year. There was a 4-3 and none of us caught it. And as I spoke with Department of Revenue when I asked them about it, they said in the last 3 to 5 years, they had changed how they interpreted quorum. And I hadn't gone to a budget training in a few years. So I apologize. I own that. And moving forward, we know the rules now and we'll follow them. Yes, Brandy.
So if Michelle's not gonna take her seat because she's technically was appointed to budget committee by the board, is it still 6 votes or does that position become vacant?
So as far as the district is concerned, we don't have any documented resignation. If she resigned and gave documentation to it, the timing, I don't know. I'd have to call the Department of Revenue and ask how that works, because we're in the middle of the process. I would err on the side of caution and say, let's say 6, whether that position is resigned or not, just to be safe.
I just know there has to be an equal number of budget committee members to equal number of board members. So if there's a vacancy on the board side or the committee side, then does one board member's vote drop off?
I don't know the answer to that. So as we know right now, we have not received a resignation, so we are a full budget committee of 10. If something changes, then I'll bring that to the committee. Phases of the budget process. So first, we prepare the budget. The staff prepares it with board input. The board has been meeting over the last several months and talking about a variety of assumptions that are built into the budget. Phase 2 is the budget committee considering approval of the budget, and the wording is important. The budget committee approves the budget, the board adopts the budget. And that process is all laid out in the calendar that is included in your budget. And was adopted by the board back in November or December of 25. And then we manage the budget and update it as necessary throughout the year. The current fiscal year budget has had 2 amendments during the 25-26 budget year, and I expect we'll have 1 more amendment before the end of this fiscal year. So budget principles, we know that a budget is a financial plan based on the best information available. Things happen, things change. And all the assumptions that we are using to build this year-end budget are spelled out in the budget, and the financials are as of April 29th. So we did not close out the month of April. We haven't gotten all of those bills in yet. So there are assumptions built in for April, May, and June. That, for one, I know at least is incorrect already as of this morning or this afternoon. But we do our best to build the budget around the information we have. And even with the best plan, things may not go as anticipated. And so planning gives us direction and guidance, but making good policy decisions and operational decisions throughout the year is what gets us to good results in a budget.
Real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I have people texting me that want to know the passcode so they can jump on.
It's on the website. It's the last 4 digits of our phone number. So it's 475-4253.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you go to your budget document that you have in front of you, or if you're on Zoom, you can open it through the website. There are 5 sections to the budget. You've got your budget committee information, which is your blue tab. Behind that tab, you have a list of the budget committee members, all of the agendas and notices that for the meetings, the board's adopted vision, mission, goals, and objectives for the upcoming fiscal year, and draft resolution adopting the budget if it were to be approved as is. Your second tab is green. It's your general fund tab. Behind this tab, you have a general fund overview and a bulleted list of significant variances in the proposed general fund budget from the current fiscal year. And then you have your budget worksheets. So you have your general fund summary of revenues and expenses. And then your expenses by program, and we'll talk through that in a minute, why it's set up that way. You also have our capital improvements list. Our 2 loans that we'll be paying back in fiscal year from 6/27. And then you have our accounting software, and instead of printing out multiple reports, I did one report out of QuickBooks, and it's a general fund prior year comparison, so you see expenses and actuals through April 29th in the current year, and then you see last year's for the whole fiscal year, just to give you I guess, a comparison of place and time of what the expenses have been historically. You have that same information behind the debt service fund, and the debt service fund is a little different this year because the board has adopted a resolution closing it effective June 30, 2026. We no longer will be levying any funds through that debt service fund. And so the resolution is included in there as well as the financial reports. Behind the brown tab, you have maintenance reserve fund. Same information in there as the other funds. And then the final section is your supplemental information. And that's that purple tab in the back. You have some of our key performance indicator data, the assessor's memo and historical tracking of assessor's information, the assumptions memo that was presented to the board in both February and March. And you can see what changed between those 2 months. The adopted organizational chart, fee schedule based on our adopted cost recovery policy. I think we also have our summer schedule in there for you to see. And then historical FTE. And then a sheet at the end. Usually I put the audit in here. I decided to save trees, and it's available online if you want to look at that. And the website for where it's located is on that last page. So that's the budget document itself. It looks and feels a little bit different this year than in the past. Has really decided to focus in based on board direction on aquatics programming. And so you'll see it has more of an aquatics feel, lots of blues. That's part of our rebrand. So if you turn to page 16, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of how to read the financial information. So on page 16, you'll see we're at the general fund summary of revenues. And in the PowerPoint, I'm going to point out a few things that you can also see on your hard copy. So you have 3 years of actuals, so 2022-23 through 2024-25. And all of those actuals tie back to our audit report. You have your fiscal year 25-26 original adopted budget, and then the most recent amendment to the budget, and then projected year end. So typically when we're looking at this, we're looking at the projected year end because that's what helps us project what's going to happen next year. We've had 2 budget adjustments, as I mentioned, in October and January, and I do expect us to have one more adjustment. I don't know if it's going to come to the board in May or June, but that is a reflection of unanticipated legal fees that we're going to have based on something that happened today. And then we propose the fiscal year 26-27 budget based on historical data, based on what we have seen happen this year, and what we project is going to happen with schedule changes and things that we know are coming next year. Are there any questions on revenues or how to read that page before? We're going to come back to this and look at it in more detail, but I'm just going up through how to read it right now. So the next thing we're going to look at is page 17. This is the general fund summary of expenditures. And what I want you to note is that, again, we have 3 years of prior year actuals and then the same budgets. On the left-hand side, there's a column for account number. And under both personnel services and materials and services, it says see detail. That's because the way Oregon budget law works, you do separate detail for each of those departments on their expenditures. So as you go through your budget document, you'll see the recreation programs, department budget, the MAC facility department budget, and the administration department budget. Those are our three departments within the general fund. And then they are summarized on this general fund summary expenditure sheet by category. So we've got our personnel services category and materials and services category. Now on this page 17, as you go down the sheet, there are also additional categories listed that have account numbers next to them. And that's because they are accounted for in the general fund itself. There's not a separate expenditure spreadsheet for that. So when you look at, for example, capital outlay, there is not a detailed sheet behind that beyond our capital improvement list, for example. Same with debt service that you see. We have 2 debt service repayment schedules in the budget, but there's not a separate detail sheet. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm seeing nodding. Okay. So that's my quick overview of the document. Are there any questions about the document before I start diving into the current fiscal year? So on page 9 of your budget document, it's as part of the budget message. We've got key accomplishments in 25-26 that we're going to do. The development and implementation of formalized plans for operations, safety, and staff training required by changes in state regulations for public aquatics facilities. So a lot of that work happened this summer. And we've done a lot of training on all of these formalized plans. And it really hasn't improved our staff's readiness to respond to situations that happen at the field. Some of it is still ongoing. We're still working on another accomplishment, which was the launch of a comprehensive asset management system. We are not as far into that as I hoped we'd be at this point. We are so short-staffed that we have not had the time to dedicate. We do have some of our part-time staff helping work on this as time allows, and I hope that we'll get more done this summer. But essentially, we're taking 18 years of asset management in spiral bound notebooks and emails and different types of correspondence and dumping it into a system that tracks it. We pay $1,500 a year for that system, so it's relatively inexpensive. It also helps us run trends and scenarios on chemical usage and allows us to track certificates for staff and some other things. So it's more than just an asset management system. And it's made for pools. So it's a really great investment by the district for that $1,500 a year. We haven't had the staff time to invest to make it usable from that asset perspective yet. So that's in progress. A redesign of swim lesson programming to better align and meet expected outcomes for participants. The board had a presentation on this recently by Peyton Krela and Natalia Reese, our patron services and marketing lead and our aquatics lead. And I do have some slides in here about kind of what they talked about in that presentation. But essentially, the swim lessons have gone from me looking at them and saying, I cannot understand how this works. So when you would see them on our website, you'd see like 7 or 8 different things listed, and they have odd names, and it was confusing for non-aquatic people, to 6 different classes for different ages, and there's 3 levels. And it's very simple. And so in addition to that, taking that redesign and then training staff on it. And so we've had regular monthly trainings for our swim instructors, and we're seeing huge benefits from it. Getting a lot of feedback from people using our swim lessons that they're going really well. Of course, we have a lot of seasonal staff who are young and learning and growing. So we also get feedback that we're able to address and help make everybody do better. But we're really excited about how swim lessons have just exploded. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We established key performance indicators as part of the priorities that are included in your packet. And we'll talk through a few of those, and they really do help data-informed decision-making. When we were looking at developing the summer schedule, we were able to use some of these new KPIs to help us identify what we needed to add to the schedule to try and ensure we were meeting needs of all of our different stakeholders. And then reorganizing spaces to meet storage requirements for public records, creating official cooling space for staff, and maximizing our storage space. So a lot of that also happened this summer. And we have an official staff break room, which we didn't have before. And we love it because the phones stay in there and they're not out on deck. And the staff like it because they can go in there, and my office isn't right at the door. It's their own closed space. So it's been really great. This is a slide from Peyton and Natalia's presentation that I love because it's a really great visual representation of the programming and the services that we offer in our communities. So we have swim lessons from, a 3 or 4 month old all the way up to junior swim team. And these are foundational for water safety and for helping kids gain confidence in the water. Then we work with partners with the Madras swim team and Madras High School to offer the Madras swim team club swim team, and then the high school offers our high school swim team. And this is fostering growth through partnerships and ultimately preparing us to hire staff who come for their first interview and have no idea how to answer questions and learn life skills and responsibility. And we love being their first employer. And then they turn into lap swimmers, folks using fitness classes, open swim, coming in for recovery from, knee surgery or back surgery or whatever is happening in their life. And it's family, health and wellness, and social. And the cycle continues because so many of those folks end up putting their kids in swim lessons and trying to instill the value. And that's how we build our staff. That's how we build the future of aquatics profession. There's been a lot of conversation in the aquatics profession about how people view it as a teenage summer job. And it really is a profession of folks. Our 3 team members who are mostly in programming got to go to a Oregon Recreation and Parks Association training with some aquatics professionals, and they came back just lit up and excited about all the things we could be doing. And this is it's just, to me, it's a community building for health and wellness, and a great representation of our core mission. This is a slide from the swim lesson redesign presentation that the staff did. Swim lesson participation is up a lot since October. We always see it kind of go up right as we get into the springtime and then going into summer. We are going to be offering swim lessons in the mornings and the evenings this summer because we've had a lot of people request them. We're hoping to also do some pilot swim lessons on Saturdays, although we haven't gotten there yet because of our staff spending most of their time lifeguarding instead of program building. But we're really excited about the trajectory that we're on and how things are just on an upswing in terms of participation and programming. On page 38 in your book is where we've stuck in a few key performance indicators for you to see. Based on board feedback at the last board meeting, I went back through all of our data related to memberships to make sure that we were using unduplicated numbers and found out that in places we were using unduplicated and others we were using duplicated. So I went through and I looked back through all of the unduplicated and made everything unduplicated. So when you see anything related to memberships, it's not 12 memberships from one person every month of the year. It's just one person, one membership. So this KPI shows membership revenue and the number of members going back to 2018-19. The revenue for this current fiscal year is through April 30th. And one of the major shifts between last fiscal year and this fiscal year was that Medicare changed the third party they're working with on memberships. And so last year, if someone came and swam once, we got $28 for that member for that month. Now they have to come 6 times for us to get that same $28. And if they come once, we get $4. So you can see that the revenue is down. And part of that is a reflection of that change in who Medicare is using. We're anticipating that we're gonna hit that 751 from last year or get close to it by the end of this fiscal year.
How
So-
are we counting the punch cards now in this unduplicated graph?
So if you buy a punch card, that's one membership.
So we're still duplicating the punch cards just by,
Yeah, if somebody came and bought one punch card and they renewed it, that's two separate memberships for punch cards. Punch cards are a little bit different than monthly or annuals because of that.
yeah.
So when you look at total unduplicated memberships and the percent of memberships by type, you can see back in 2018-19, the majority of memberships were annuals and regular annuals and monthlies. And over time, as you go through the years, now there's a more diverse offering of memberships. And you can see that our partner memberships have gone down. Part of that is the firefighters who were eligible through the fire department have moved under the Medicare third-party health offering, so the fire department's not paying for it anymore. We also have seen a drop off in the school district utilizing the facility for athletes, and part of that was cost savings on their part this last year. You can see that punch cards are on the rise a little bit from the past couple of years. The Fitness RX program has rebounded a bit. Part of why you see it went haywire over here is St. Charles Foundation was paying for all providers in Jefferson County to write Fitness RX prescriptions. And this year in 23-24, they changed it so it's just the St. Charles family practice that's able to write those. We do have a grant writer that's working with us that's identifying opportunities for us to potentially expand that to other providers in Jefferson County, particularly looking at Mosaic and Indian Health Services. And then also reaching out to Madras Medical and Best Care to see if we can also get them into the program through a grant. When we look at our operating costs, and our revenues as a percent of those operating costs, our policy goal for cost recovery is 50 to 75%. You can see that the district has never really met that goal. We were pretty close in 22-23. That's when we were at our peak staffing, the most hours that we've had in the last 5 years. And now you can see that as of the end of April, we're at about 29% cost recovery. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on to see, how you balance charging fees versus subsidizing for property taxes, because those are kind of the two pools that we are using for calculating the cost recovery. Page 39, this is a slide that really changed how I view our operations and our programs and services. So when we look at our earned revenue as a percent of total revenue, you can see back in 2021, that drop-ins really were 60% of the earned revenue of the district. And over the years, that has come down to be a little bit under 20%. And then you can see our other revenue streams have gone up. So when I looked at this, I thought, okay, we need to, first of all, I feel like we've really balanced our stakeholders well, because everybody is basically in the same area of that 20 to 30%. And we need to do more to serve our drop-ins. And so that's why when we look at our summer schedule, you can see we've added more open rec swim time, and then we've rebranded our lap swim, independent workout, and all those things to open pool time. And when we did that, we had a number of people who would call the front desk or stop in and say, oh, I thought this was for members only during this time. Like, no, it's always been open. So I'm hoping that rebranding is going to help folks understand that the pool is, whenever we have hours, we're open to the public, unless it's a rental, or unless both swim teams are practicing and we don't have a lap swim lane available or something like that, the pool is always open. And so when you look at our schedule for this summer, there's little splashes that show you what's new for summer 2026. And you can see that rebranding of open pool time versus open rec swim. And the difference is open rec swim, the attractions are on, the slide is available, the diving board, the rope swing. During open pool time, those attractions are not on for a variety of reasons, for staffing reasons, for programming reasons. We've got multiple programs happening at the pool at the same time. If we have, say, the slide on, it could be distracting swim lesson kiddos from doing what they should be doing. So for all those things, we have these two separate types of sessions that we offer, and we've added open rec swims during the time of day that we see historically has been the highest used, which is that 1 to 3 time period. When you look across the region, Prineville, Redmond, Bend, their open swims are also often at that time. And that's because it's a popular time during no school days and in the summer. We've added a Friday night open rec swim from 6:30 to 8:30. And then maintained those Saturday 1 to 3 and 3:30 to 5:30, which we've had this school year.
What was the attendance last Friday at that rec swim that Please Sank sponsored?
So we were staffed for 265. We had 60 in district and 3 out of district, so a total of 63 swimmers at that Friday night swim. So that is my kind of overview of 25-26, and then we're going to dive into the assumptions that are built into the year-end estimates, unless there's questions that I can answer before we do that. All right, so if you go to page 16 in your general fund section of the budget. This is the page of the. We can start with this top line, this beginning fund balance. Our projected year end is based on the auditor's findings for the fiscal year 24-25 audit. So we started this fiscal year negative 67,565. 40,000 of that is a loan to the debt service fund. And the remaining is just we overspent what we were offering did not match the revenues that we had available. In addition to that, in the prior year, there was a major tax correction that everyone's aware of, is $1.8 million, and that also impacted our revenues because that refund happened that at the end of 24-25 going into 25-26. So that also had an impact on our budget. When you look at projected year end for property taxes, this is based on collections to date and making some assumptions around how many payment plans we expect to come in, and looked back through several years of data. I feel like it's on the conservative side. We're probably going to come in a little bit more than that, but that's what we have projected as year end for property taxes. Programs and services revenue, you can see that we've projected that we will end this fiscal year with $183,141. Part of that is the assumptions around the revenue, and aquatics included like 80 to 90% of budget coming in for daily drop-ins, and we have not realized that. I think we're at like 62% or something of budget for our drop-in revenue. And then for facility revenues, you see that number is much lower than anticipated, and part of that is not hosting as many swim meets as we anticipated, And not having as many year-end rentals because we increased the fees associated with year-end parties. So a lot of the schools are not doing them, partially because we raised our fees and partially because the school district is also having its own financial challenges and they're trying to save money. So programs and services revenue, we're expecting to come in lower than budgeted. Grants and donations and miscellaneous, you can see that we're anticipating a few additional donations and fundraising based on things that have been verbally or offered to the district to support our May water safety program for sixth graders that we're going to be doing for the first time. And then also for what Jean just mentioned, the free sponsored open swim, those funds will hit in May. So you see that those assumptions there. What is not included here is reimbursement we're going to receive based on litigation that's happening right now. Our insurance coverage is up to $25,000 in reimbursement for litigation fees. We have surpassed that significantly already, but after talking with special districts, they will not reimburse those funds until the case is completed. And so I budgeted that in the future fiscal year and not in this fiscal year. We don't anticipate to get that by the end of June. And then lastly, transfers from other funds, because the board voted to close the debt service fund. There's two sections to that. The first section is all revenues as of June 30, 2026 will be transferred to the general fund. And then moving forward, any prior year taxes collected will go toward the maintenance reserve fund. So you'll see that in this budget, we expect to transfer $56,500 from the debt service fund to the general fund. For the projected year end to get us to 1,26,509 is our projected year end revenue. Are any questions on the projections for the year end on revenue?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing this on the
Yes.
screen. Yes, the writing, is this page 16?
Yeah, we're on page 16.
I know we can't discuss details of the budget, but negative fund balances, have you discussed with Department of Revenue if that's permitted to start with a negative fund balance?
Yes, and we've spoken with our auditors about it as well. And because there's been a significant positive movement from the prior year to this year, there will still be a note in our audit identifying that ongoing concern. And we made significant progress and anticipate ending next fiscal year not in the negative. So there's not. So that's the feedback.
So last year's audit report did include a going concern
Yes,
footnote?
it did. Other questions on revenues for to expenditures?
I don't have any questions, but Courtney, when you were talking about the ending fund balance going negative in 25-26 and in 24-25, I heard you talk about the tax roll correction. I think we were all aware, though, of the maintenance issues that happened in both of those years, that there was no maintenance reserve fund within the budget to address.
Yeah.
We had a leaking pool liner, we had a sand filter system. I don't remember what all there was, but it seemed like every other month we had another maintenance fatality.
Yeah.
In both of those years, along with the tax corrections.
And ultimately, when you look back, and I'll have this graph in our May 18th budget presentation, the district has a history of having a negative ending fund balance because it has never been sustainable from the start. So we didn't have that problem for a number of years because the building was still new. And now we're at a time when the building is starting to need investment. And so Jean's exactly right.
Which makes that maintenance reserve fund more and more important in the next coming years.
All right, so if you want to turn to page 17, I am going to skip over for a second personnel services and materials and services because we're going to look at those in detail. So I'm going to go down to capital outlay, which is the third category you see. We're anticipating that the projected year end will be 57,375. It was lower than that, but the front door needed to be repaired and that was $5,100. So that is included in that projected year end balance. We're hoping we don't have anything else, but this is an area where something could happen that's unanticipated. So that's capital outlay. We also have a domestic water heater that was replaced this year that is still not operating correctly. And we're working with both the installer and the company that holds the warranty on the piece of equipment to try and resolve that. So that's an ongoing thing.
Is that what's leading to complaints that the pool is too cold?
No,
No, oh,
that's
okay.
domestic water. The pool is a little bit colder because we were trying to save money.
Oh, okay.
So we did reduce temperatures by 1 degree in both pools. Going down total debt and short-term borrowing, you can see that we paid principal and interest on our loan from the county for the tax anticipation. That cash flows us through the summer. And then we also paid principal and interest on the energy efficiency loan that the district is almost paid off. We have 2 more years of payments and I'm hoping we can pay it off next year. 1 fiscal year less. That's what's in the repayment fund. You'll see that we're not budgeting to transfer anything to the maintenance reserve fund this year. That's because we put 50-something thousand in this year and we've got a very large capital improvement list for next year. And then we don't anticipate spending contingency. There are a couple of unknowns that could happen between now and then that could cost us to use contingency. One is legal expenses, which we'll talk about when we get to the administration budget. And the other is the potential recall, depending on the timing of and if signatures are turned in and verified, the cost estimate for that election is $20,000 that the district will bear. And so if those recall signatures are turned in time for an election to happen before June 30, then that would be a June 30 expense. If those signatures are turned in and verified and it happens after that, then it would be a next fiscal year expense. As you can see, we're projected the ending fund balance. I mean, it could be negative 2,500, it could be positive 5,000. You know, the way that I tend to do my estimates is I'm very conservative on my revenues and I project worst case scenarios in my expenses so that hopefully we meet in the middle and we don't end up going negative. But there's a chance that we could be negative this year, just like we were last year. However, going from 67,500 in the negative to 2,500 to me is a testament to difficult operational decisions that were made this last year to reduce expenditures. Any questions on the summary before we go to the detail pages on the departments?
That's where that $40,000 loan from last year hit the books this year too, right? And so like you said that it's a testament to the operational decisions, but 40,000 of that was the loan repayment.
Yes, so in the revenues, we do have that 40,000 repayment coming into the general fund. Yes. So if you go to page 18, that's the recreation program's detail expenditures. And you can see for projected year end on personnel services, we're going to be significantly over what we projected. Staffing our swims is expensive and we have been doing 4 hours every month of in-service as we're required to do that we had not been doing as diligently, I would say, prior to this year. And as a result, you can see our part-time and seasonal salaries are much higher than expected. Most of that is lifeguards and lifeguard in-service. And part of that is because it's our part-time and full-time staff that are doing the lifeguarding. So our highest paid employees who are doing that work, we allocate their time to this budget. So for example, our patron services and marketing lead is budgeted in admin. But when she spends her time in the lifeguard chair, that gets allocated to this department. So when we get to the total category of personnel services, you can see that we're anticipating we're going to be just under the total category. And that's because over the 3 departments, it all kind of evens out. But more of that time has been spent in lifeguarding in this budget. As you go down through materials and services, you can see that we're anticipating to have spent about $24,000 this year. We really have cut back on everything we possibly can in this budget. We did have to spend some money on uniforms this year, and going into the summer, we're going to have to as well, which is why you see that is almost that's hitting the budgeted number, but everything else is pretty much under budget. As you look through the details on those, you can also see that near the bottom, line 1-71052. Here, we've got a lot of requests from outside organizations to utilize our lifeguard instructor, which is Peyton. And so she's taught 2 classes so far this year for us, and we'll be teaching 2 in June for outside organizations. And so that's why you see that cost being so much higher. In the past, one of these organizations has rented the pool and then brought their own LGI, and one of them has used Redmond, but this year they're coming and using us. So this is an expense in my mind that's really good because it also brings in revenues as well. Any questions on programs and the year-end estimates? All right, then we're gonna get to the Madras Aquatic Center facility on page 19. So you can see we're projected to be right on budget for personnel services at $88,383. We do have a 0.25 FTE that worked this summer that's no longer with the district, and so you'll see a significant decrease moving forward. Not a significant, a decrease moving forward as a result of that. And then as you go down, you can see contractual services is coming in a little bit over budget. We just hired a preventative maintenance company that's helping us with our HVAC and boilers. Prior to that, we've had a residential company helping us doing quarterly maintenance, and it's not been as preventative as we would like. So we're going to be paying about $4,500 a quarter for that service, and it's going to be hugely helpful, I think, for us in terms of efficiencies in our power usage and being able to plan ahead for problems rather than reacting to them when they happen, as we have an aging infrastructure in the building. Looking down, repairs and maintenance, we're expected to come in at $43,774. That's another line that could go up depending on what happens. Any repairs or maintenance on the building that costs less than $5,000 is budgeted in that line item. You can see utilities is expected to come in right at budget. And so our total materials and services for this department is expected to be around $300,000, which is slightly over budget. Any questions about year-end projections for the facility?
Yeah, on contractual services at 172002, the top line item. The projection is double at the year end. Can you touch on that? Your proposed 61.5.
We'll talk about that at the May 18th meeting.
Okay.
But yes, I will have answers for that. Yeah.
Usually, like the city or the utility company say, this is your rate increases for the next, did you get rate increases from any of the utility carriers?
We've gotten them, so a couple of them, we've gotten a few throughout the year that were effective essentially immediately. I haven't gotten notice from the city or from anyone else what that looks like yet, so we budgeted 12% just to try and be conservative for future assumptions.
So 12% on all utilities as a whole?
No, just on the ones that we don't know the answer to yet.
On that utility line overall, it's a 10% change.
Yeah.
Okay, so I must have done a 10% then. Or it could be that it evened out to 10% because of, we know that water isn't. I haven't gotten any notice on water, but that we've had a significant savings in that line. Power went up, has gone up twice so far this fiscal year. Cascade natural gas has gone up a couple times, and we're assuming that we're gonna see some savings there if the heat exchanger capital project happens, which is part of next year's budget. And we expect to see some savings because of the new domestic water heater as well. So all of those things kind of factored in to what we're going to end up talking about at the May 18th meeting about the proposed budget. Any questions on projected year end? Okay, then we'll go to page 20, administration. You can see that the personnel services are under budget, and that's because a lot of the staff time that would have been in this department budget is happening in the programming budget. As you look down, you can see that everything is basically coming in under budget with the exception of legal services. And this is the area where, again, we have some unknowns over the next couple of months. I'm expecting that number could be upwards of 80,000. But yes. And if you're curious to see the line item detail, it's in the supplemental information part of your budget. Because it is such a huge expense this year. It's on page 55. And you can see the line item breakdown through March 30th or March 31st of what those expenses have been.
What page is that? Sorry, 55?
Page 55.
Did you guys, have you as a board discussed what law firm you want to continue representing this district? Because you couldn't find a more expensive one.
Well, so
I mean,
couple things. SDAO recommended local government law group as our general counsel. And then SDAO and local government law group recommended litigation attorney. So
okay.
the board did appoint both of those entities as our legal representation.
Okay. Thank you for getting guidance from SDA on.
Yeah, we switched attorneys July 1, basically. Yes.
So back to page 20. You just said that the increase in contract services, are you referring to this itemized detail on this page, or is it a different, because like legal is actually going down on line item 73019 to 12,000.
Yes, for next year, that's the hope. We're not talking about next year's budget yet. We're talking about the estimated projected year end.
Okay, so that 68 ties to this number, but then in your budget message, you say you're gonna have 40,000 in legal.
In my budget message, it says we had 50 something thousand in legal related to the group of folks that are suing and pursuing grievances and other things. So that's
The 10 taxpayer.
that's a summary of expenses related to that particular situation. When you look at the detail on page 55, you can see that it's summarized to show what's typical operational support, reviewing policies and agreements, $9,700, that we did spend $20 sort of wrapping up the May 2025 election. That we spent $60 on legal advice on the recall. We spent $8,300 on grievances, public records requests, about $800, and that our litigation fees to date are at $43,870. And when I say to date, that's through March 30th, March 31st. So this is the detail through March 31st. There are still 3 months left of this fiscal year. I'm anticipating that we will be doing a budget adjustment to utilize budget authority and contingency for legal services. Before the end of this fiscal year. And all of those funds that we've spent could have been in our ending fund balance. Happy to answer any questions anyone has on the administration budget.
So, Ed,
Yes.
when I was reviewing the packet yesterday, you mentioned that you were going out for another audit. An auditor, is that part of that, the projection for next year is what that new contract rate will be?
So we did go out for a new auditor twice this year. We received no proposals either time. And so in consultation with our vice chair and secretary treasurer, we're going to extend our existing contract 1 more year. So they'll be our auditor for this current fiscal year 25-26 and also 26-27. And then we'll be going out probably again in spring of 27 for an auditor for 27-28.
Hard to find them.
It is.
I think we gotta encourage more of these high school kids to take
Go into
some-
finance.
Yes,
For
finance.
real.
It's, yeah, nationwide, I understand.
Yes.
So continuing on in the general fund, on page 21 and 22, you can see our capital improvements list. Just to walk you through what our year-end estimate includes, we spent $5,800 on our pool boiler maintenance. We have to do maintenance every year. It can cost anything from $5,000 to $10,000 for that maintenance. And so now that will be included as part of our maintenance agreement with Southland, who's doing our HVAC and boiler program. And then our domestic water heater replacement was $46,443. And then repairs to the front entryway door was $5,100. And that's what we've spent in 25-26. You can see that we go out through 29-30. And then there's a list of future projects on the right-hand side. We've been really focusing on trying to get estimates on all of the things that will need to happen in this building in the next 5 to 10 years. One example is Martha came and did a walkthrough and advised us that we're going to need to replace the liners in both the lap pool and the leisure pool in the next 3 years. That is $1 million project. There's also improvements that are going to have to happen with filter media, and I mean, eventually we're going to have to replace the roof and other things. So we're trying to gather as much estimate data as possible, so the board can consider whether or not they want to do a maintenance bond at some point to pay for those expenses. As I think most of you know, we've also got the locker room, what we're calling the locker room accessibility project, that needs to get done in the next few years as well. And we have budgeted money and consultants to help start that architectural review process so that we can set ourselves up for success for that project to happen in the next 3 to 5 years.
Is that liner replacement standard maintenance at that age, or do you feel like the liners didn't maybe last as long as they should have?
Oh, they
Or is
said
that-
they looked great for their age.
Oh, okay, good.
They said that our pool looks amazing for its age.
Oh,
And we're
good.
really impressed by it.
Nice.
And said that most pools have to replace them. Usually they do a 15-year, 10 to 15-year, what's the word I'm looking for, warranty on them. And so when they do come in and redo them, it includes all the tile that you see, because the liner comes up under the tile on all those walls. So it includes redoing all of that. And they said at that point, they do a warranty, and then they also may look at revising your structural warranty as well. Because when they pull the liner up, they can look at the structure too. Both of those things are out of warranty for us because they've lasted so long. So it's,
Nice.
I mean, it's a good,
Oh, well,
it's a good story.
We'll take what wins we can.
But that is an expense that's coming. I'm just gonna keep trucking through. So page 23, you can see our energy efficiency improvement project. We have 2 payments in fiscal year 25-26 that have already happened, and then the highlighted is for next fiscal year. My hope is that we can pay this thing off in 27-28 and save a couple $100 in interest. It's not gonna save us that much, but just to have it paid off within a fiscal year, not having it go another one would be great. And then after that, on page 24 is the loan repayment schedule for our Jefferson County tax anticipation loan. That was approved in April, and you can see that we're gonna pay less interest this upcoming year than we did this year, and part of that is the commissioners broke it into 2 separate I don't wanna say payments. Disbursements, thank you. And so it saves us on interest, so I was happy about that, that was great.
But yeah, maybe we look at that for future loans as well.
Cause a lot of our expenses come in September when we're doing our closure and maintenance and all of that stuff. And that is the general fund, as it relates to fiscal year 25-26. So now we'll go to debt service fund. And I'm sorry for those of you on Zoom, I'm trying to remember to move the picture to the next thing, and I'm sure I'm doing a great job of it.
The font is really,
Yeah, it's hard to read.
yeah,
I need to bold it, I think.
but I think anyone can pull the document up off of the website that looks better.
Can we change it to black font?
Well, and we bolded it on the, so yeah, I'll try and fix that. So we can post it so it's a little bit darker. For the fiscal year end on the debt services fund, just as a reminder, we had to borrow money from the general fund to make our final loan payment in 24-25. That final payment was made in May. And then the way that the auditor, so when we originally did the budget for 25-26, you can see that we took out the principal that we had in our ending fund balance and then budgeted for repaying what was left of that $40,000 loan. But because it's a short-term loan, just like we do with our tax anticipation loan, it doesn't have to hit the profit and loss. It actually can just live on the balance sheet. And so when you look at 25-26 projected year end, you can see that we're not budgeting to pay back any principal. We just have it as a loan repayment transfer back to the general fund. But we did pay interest back to the general fund, $849 and something cents for that loan. You can see that the current year taxes are projected to come in right at 40,000, which is what we levied. And then quite a bit has come in for prior year taxes this year. We never really know what that's gonna look like. And so this year there's a bit more than we've had in past years. Interest is coming in a little bit lower than budgeted, and that's because we have less money sitting in that account. And you can see the ending cash balance is at 0 because anything that's left is going to be transferred to the general fund. For the resolution that is on page 31 and 32 of your budget document. I did run this resolution and this whole thing by the Department of Revenue because this is something that's outside of my wheelhouse, and they shared their advice and expertise on how to approach this. And so that's how we came to this approach with the debt service fund. It will be closed officially at the end of this fiscal year, and we will leave it in the budget document until it falls off. So you'll see debt service fund in the budget document in future years, until there's nothing remaining, which should be in 29-30.
Randy, how many years is that? Is it 4 or 5? You remember? That prior year's taxes would still be coming in on that bond.
It's 4.
4.
It's, think it's the foreclosure process at 4 and they can trickle in after that. But if they close this is a debt service fund. I think this one actually vetoes out and the assessor no longer collects anything left on it.
Right, the assessor would levy, but the tax collector would still have some of those
Still
prior
receive
year
funds.
taxes trickling in.
Yeah, they would still receive.
Yeah,
And those
I
will
just didn't know if it trickled in for 4 years or it would.
It would be.
It's quite a, yeah,
I thought Gabriel said it could be 50, I mean, it
It
just
could
depends
be,
on
yeah.
how long it takes to collect it. And
Yeah.
the last number we have on our balance sheet is about 38,000, that's outstanding taxes to be collected that are either late or haven't been paid. And so that could come in over the next however many years.
right. Yeah, it would be 4 years back taxes plus 2 years redemption period and then if it's ever, well, that's only if it's sold. Which there's a moratorium on selling tax foreclosed property right now pending a statewide class action lawsuit regarding tax foreclosures. And it's a taking if the county doesn't return excess funds. So until the Department of Revenue works out what that looks like.
Yeah.
In conjunction with the state tax foreclosure statutes. We haven't been selling properties, so. We're still sitting on a lot of them. Not a lot. A few. And not a whole lot of value, but
Any questions on debt service before we move on to maintenance reserve? So on page 35 is the maintenance reserve fund. You can see that we started the fiscal year with $11,000 and we plan to end the fiscal year with $11,000. We'll talk about the proposed budget at the May 18th meeting. But I think it's fair to say the district is hoping to really start beefing this up because we see so many projects coming in the future. That is all I had to present on the current fiscal year and kind of what we expect. As I noted, the two unanticipated things between now and June are legal fees and maintenance issues. And so we're just waiting to see. From a revenue perspective, we have seen nothing but growth and increasing participation in programming and all the things. So we're feeling pretty positive as we go into those summer months that it's going to be a really great summer. And then my last slide is if you have questions as you're looking through your budgets, I would love to either sit down and talk with you about them, or if you want to email them to me. What I do right before we go into the actual budget meeting is I collect all the questions that I've received and I send out those questions and answers to everyone on the budget committee. So you're all starting from the same place when we go into that May 18th meeting. Anytime, I'm happy to sit down and talk with about any questions you might have. I'm gonna try and connect with everyone that wasn't here tonight to try and go through what we went through tonight, so we don't have to rehash this meeting again on May 18th. But that's our budget committee meeting. We do have an executive session that we've noticed for 5 o'clock that evening, and we'll go into the budget committee as soon as that's completed. And then after the budget committee meeting, we'll have the board business meeting. So the 18th will be a busy one. It's gonna be in this room. We're doing all of our main meetings here. For consistency's sake for the public, so it's not confusing. What did I do?
it just says Wednesday, May 18th,
Oh, it
and
should
I
be
have
Monday.
that as Monday.
Thank
Okay,
you, it's Monday. I copied last year's slide presentation. So, yeah, I'll fix that before I post it online.
I have a question.
Yes,
So we didn't get to like page 46.
well, we can.
So the property tax revenues, like on this schedule, you have 26, 27 is blank.
Yeah, so this is a memo from March. If you go back to page.
Cause I thought the local option levy was not,
dropping off.
I thought it was dropping off, so I was expecting like a huge budget deficit.
The local option levy doesn't drop off until 2028.
But I thought it said in the bank's 26, 27. So you wouldn't collect, cause if it was passed in 22. And it's a 5-year. You sure,
Passed in 22, it would start in 20.
We have this year. It's not, it was passed in 20.
I don't have my folder with
Or I was
me, or
gonna
I'd
say, I need
answer
to-
that question for you,
Well,
but
because
we
when
have
the
to,
election was going on, like, everyone's like, well, if it fails a second time, it's not gonna renew, they're gonna miss a year.
It was November 8th, 22. Oh, wait.
the local option levy was passed before we tried those first two, those
Yeah.
two failed.
I know,
I
I
think you
just
still
was
had 3
wondering the
years.
sunset of that levy I thought was gonna hit, like, I was expecting like a huge budget deficit.
No, I think
Oh,
we're
the
supposed to go out
local-
for it next year.
So it's 27,
27, 28.
28. So with knowing that that's dropping off. And. You know, looking at the ending fund balances. Raise a question,
Is-
yeah.
Do you look at it that way, that it's dropping off though until it fails? I mean, we'll go back out for the local option levy next year.
Yes, but do you build up
renewal.
reserves knowing what if it doesn't pass?
Brandy, if it doesn't pass, the pool is gonna shut down.
down.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah,
that is,
you can't build up enough reserves.
Yeah, it's
To
just-
keep it open.
You mentioned in any of the budget, like messaging, the only place I see it is page 46, but this is blank right here, so I'm like. Are we emphasizing to the community that like, this is the last full budget under that includes local option levy?
what is blank on that is the actual collections for next fiscal year, which haven't happened yet. What you're looking at is an estimate. You get the memo so. If everybody could turn to page 54, that's the most recent one. What you're looking at is a screenshot of that and a memo to the board. Page 54 is the full summary. And I'm happy to walk you all through it. So on the left-hand side, you have the memo estimate from the county assessor that we get in January, February for what he believes the upcoming the value will be. And then you see a calculation of estimated year-over-year change between what the county assessor, has said. And then you see the actual tax roll that comes out for that fiscal year, which we won't know until next November, which is why that is grayed out for 26, 27, because we won't have that information until, October. And so the remaining gray out for 26, 27 is because that information is not available until this fall. If you go up to 25, 26 in the current fiscal year, you can see that the actual tax roll came out $33,000 more than what the memo that the assessor estimated at. And it was a 4% increase. And our fiscal year budget was much more conservative than that and said we're gonna get 785,000. And then you see that year over year change, and then you see our actuals. So this is a way for us to track year over year how close or far off the tax assessor's memo estimate is, so that we can make good assumptions going into our budget process. This has nothing to do with our local option levy, renewal, or anything like that. This is purely just factual data for us to make good decisions on. The board has a number of decisions to make in the coming year, for which we have budgeted in our fiscal year 26, 27 proposed budget that we will talk about in our next board meeting, our next budget meeting, because we can't discuss those this time. But that's what that document is that you were looking at.
So Brandy, on that thought, if you can get that hat back on when you were finance down there for the county. When the sheriff's local option levy was coming up in the next year, what did you do different in the budgeting process?
We portrayed like we had two budget scenarios, like here's a pass, here's a fail. And
Oh,
it
come
was-
the next spring, you would do that?
Mhm.
So that's
Because
what we
it's
would be
like
looking
you
at next
least
year.
Want like
Yeah.
18 months of carryover in your beginning fund balance to get you by for at least a year. Otherwise, you don't want that, hey, we're gonna have to hard shut down. Cause it was
Yeah.
the sheriff, it was essential service.
So the county would backfill out of general funds somewhere to the sheriff's office.
I mean,
That was, I mean, yeah, they also talked about closing a significant portion of the jail.
it's kind of how it was presented during the election is. Here's your two scenarios, so it was really driven like 18-24 months ahead of the levy, gearing voters up. Or this is truly what the numbers tell the story and. So I was, yeah, for some reason, I thought next year, 26, 27, the local option was dropping off. I was a year off.
Yeah. No, it's a concern that we've all thought about and talked about. If that local option levy was to fail, the building would close. Because the 25 cents doesn't even keep the lights on. Yeah, like you say, the numbers tell the story. Yeah.
Any other questions before? We adjourn the meeting?
Well, I had questions that you can't answer, and I have to wait till next time.
You too.
To be continued.
Ready? Okay, we're gonna adjourn the meeting at what time do we got?
6:51.
6:51. Well, I guess I did with us.
Yeah, I agree.